o'clock. It's Thursday. We're back at Off the Lips. Quite a sellout crowd today. Some old faces. Super happy to have Gary. Gary was one of our first members here. And so Gary is actually the first person doing an Off the Lips for the second time.
Woo! We'll come back.
But more than just being a member, Gary was super helpful in sort of getting us going, getting some of our systems going, the ones that we have. And in general, creating a sort of, I could say, giving us the technology or digital bias that we have these days. He's been super helpful the whole way through, so it's very appropriate that he's the first person doing the second talk. He's also the person that introduced me to product design, product engineering.
Yeah.
Is that what you would call
product,
it?
Yeah.
Product. Something I didn't know about, but it turns out it's fascinating and it's opened a whole new world for me. So hopefully after listening to Gary today, the same will happen to you if you were excluded like I was. Cool. Over to you, Gary.
Cool. Thanks.
We'll do the talk and we'll do questions at the end, like always.
Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for someone stand here, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
And thanks for putting up with me. I used to get so frustrated with how things were done here, so I'm always trying to put tech back in, and now tech's not working. It is okay. I mean, if this doesn't work, then you must just do the manual thing. But I think maybe just about me. I've been in product for a while, for almost like 20 years here. I know Dean Payne from a while. He used to work with me, and launched a lot of startups, but more failures than successes. So I really want to help offload that to everyone here and help me maybe navigate and see where that comes from. I think my biggest frustration, but also excitement, is when I see founders coming up with ideas, but haven't actually achieved product market fit. And there's so many ideas and so many things to do, but we're obviously stuck with limited time. So I want to just kind of glean off that and go through that. This is so you have to be the presentation guy. So failures, I've launched a health platform, which is an absolute fail. Wasn't the right product market fit and the right product and the wrong pricing. Over to the next one. A wine platform, great product, didn't reach the right market, also the wrong pricing as well. Each of these, I think we spent about 1 or 2 million on at least, so you can imagine the cost of that. And based on startups, your average success rate is 1 to 10%, so you got to kind of take your wins like your losses. And over to the next. And then your DJ was also like a DJ in your pocket. I'm still passionate about this. I want to bring it back one day, but the timing was wrong. We launched it just before streaming platforms came out, and it was leveraging off MP3 technology. So timing was out, and just as streaming came out, they came up with solutions for this already. So yeah, and then I did my corporate. I paid for my sins at GoDaddy. I worked there for a year. It was great to launch product within a corporate atmosphere with leveraging millions of customers, which was exciting. And then I actually built one of my own startups. Well, not built, it was with a team, but I founded a platform called High Five, which was for HR tech, which was to recognize, empower, and give feedback to employees. I actually exited that officially at the beginning of this year. I didn't make millions like every other founder stories, but I came out the green light, which was exciting. And then I got a side project, which was just to tickle an itch I had called Surf Diary, and I actually came to maybe talk some insights on how I came up with that and some learnings and failures on that as well. I'm so sorry, Michael, but this thing. And then right now my day job is I'm working at a AI coaching platform out in Berlin, obviously remotely, but I help head up the product there, just where we leverage coaching for executives across organizations, right? So most people are paying a few €100 an hour for executive coaching, and we're disrupting that with AI. So that's a kind of a bit of a background on me. What I want to talk about here is that obviously the biggest problem is product market fit. So I want to help just show some frameworks and theories on how you can discover that and validate that before wasting a lot of time and energy. So I'm using a lot of Back to the Future. Who here has seen Back to the Future? Okay, that's a good sign. I did this talk a month ago, and no one put up their hands. So I was obviously speaking to the wrong audience. But okay, I'm glad. So I'm using a lot of the Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies. So where we're going, we don't need roadmaps. And I think that's the biggest thing with the product. You always want to come up with this 12 to 14 month plan, and if exactly how everything's going to roll, it never goes according to plan whatsoever. So you can forget that, scrape that out the window. I want to bring in some practical steps on how you can achieve that, by basic step by step, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of time and energy. So the biggest thing you want to focus on is I've got a 5-step process here, but the biggest one is you want to focus on is identifying the problem. And the biggest problem I've seen with founders is they focus on the solution too quickly. They're like, I've got this idea, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I keep going, what's the problem? What's the problem? How expensive is it, and how much is it worth? And that's what you've got to live and breathe with on our day-to-day. Because, and I'll speak to you about this later, but your initial idea never goes according to plan. You'll pivot a few times until you find the right one. So focus on the problem. You'll go to the next one. So you look at like Dr. Brown, right? He wasn't focusing on building the DeLorean. He was focusing on time travel. He wanted to fix mistakes that happened in the past. That was his biggest focus, was the problem, okay? And you got to figure out what kind of problem it is. So you can look at two aspects. There's the painkiller, and then there is the vitamin, okay? Now, there's no right or wrong way, but I highly suggest that you don't focus too much on vitamins, because it costs a lot of money, and you'll normally need to raise a lot more investment, which you're not going to get in South Africa, and the customer acquisition cost is way too high. So you've got to look at like maybe more painkiller ideas. Like if you're stuck in London or San Francisco, it hasn't got to JB yet. I don't know why, but you can't live without Uber. It's like a ongoing problem with transport. Slack, we use it at the green room. Within corporate, like you cannot communicate or do any work without Slack whatsoever. And organizations, like I was at GoDaddy with 10,000 employees, they're paying $10 an employee per month. So you can imagine how much they're leveraging off corporates. Same with Dropbox, cloud solutions, and obviously the green room. Cheap is where we couldn't do essential work without the green room in J-Bay, So it's the ultimate painkiller. You can focus on this space like Grammarly, like fixing grammar problems, but there's alternate tools like that, Headspace for meditation. You can, there's ways around that, but there's no ways around this, okay? You want to focus on the painkiller. Then, to find the painkiller, you want to look at some research. So I find the best way to do that is to do surveys with customers and to focus once again on the problem. So what I've found is that you get incoming calls while you're at talks, okay? But what you can get is you can obviously, once again, people have got these ideas and they get quite fixated on them. So even with surf diaries, when I was coming up with it, I thought the problem was people wanted the solution. I went to the solution mode, which is dangerous. Thought that people wanted to track their surf activities. And the more I did research with customers and people, I found that the biggest problem was that people didn't have a way to track to get feedback on their coach, on their surfing through surf footage. And then I went deep and I go, would you be willing to pay that? And I looked at 30% of the market were willing to pay between $50 to $100. So that was the problem I was focusing on. And I went off the other angle where tracking surf sessions. I was trying to be the Strava of surfing, where it was more around improving surfing through footage, But if I didn't do that, I would have wasted a lot of time building this platform, which would have didn't survive like daylight, So once again, focus on the problem. I highly suggest this book, The Mom Test. When interviewing customers, you really want to get away from focusing on speaking about the solution all the time, and you want to navigate on the problem. So I'm going to keep talking about the problem a lot. But yeah, next. And then what's going to happen out of that is you're going to get a whole bunch of solutions, okay? And ideas. And like with Dr. Brown, he even came up with the flux capacitor while he was on the toilet. So you'll find most of your ideas are going to come out of the toilet, the shower, and you get lots of these rambling ideas. And this is what I come up with. I get founders coming to me once a week. I've got this idea, I've got this idea, I've got this idea. And it's good to jot it down, put it in a book and park it, and then do research on it, And then you're going to have to pick. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be sitting there with analysis paralysis. You want to actually ship things, And that's the main thing what you want to get out of it, because you can go into strategic thinking the whole time, but unless customers see what you're going to build, you're going to waste your time, you know. Go to the next one. So what I like to do is map out a board called the impact versus effort board. So you want to look at how much effort you're going to put into the startup and how much impact it's going to get out. So two basic matrices, put them on a board, and then what you want to focus on is pick these ideas on the top left and put all the other ideas at a later stage. You know, keep those coming, but you can only focus on one or two at the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to get distracted. And then, or there's another angle called the RICE methodology, and that is looking at reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And what you do is, I've got a template here. If you go to the next slide, is you can put these ideas down, and you can map out your projected numbers on all of these, and you can come up with a score of the idea that's going to help you, that you think is going to help you. I've got to be honest, there's hundreds of frameworks. None of these are like going to solve the problem for you. They're just good to kind of map out a framework and give you a little bit of a pat on the back when you fail or launch, you know. And then, like, I tell you now, like, the biggest thing, please, like, don't ever, when you've got ideas, please don't ask investors or your customers to sign NDAs. You're going to look like a total fool. Like, I get this all the time, and I'm like, I'm trying to help people by not looking like a fool. Like, you look like an absolute fool asking people to sign an NDA. Investors, especially investors, will not sign an NDA. It's too much conflict of interest. They get tons of ideas on an ongoing basis, and they don't want to have to cut off other ideas. You know, often you find a lot of investors, especially, like, will focus on a certain demographic, like health or tech or insurtech, and they'll invest in quite a few similar categories, and they don't want to cut themselves off. So you're going to waste your so just please don't ever look like a fool. I think that's if it can help you there. And then planning is guessing, man. Like, you're going to come up with ideas and you can plan till the cows come home, but you're going to waste your time. The biggest thing is to ship. Then onto the shipping. So how to ship is you validate. And with Dr. Brown, he started off with like a toy car, you know, and like, I don't even remember that scene with the toy car, and he was testing in the fire, and the fire blew up, and so you want to, like, you know, the point is that you test with these basic prototypes that aren't the real working solution and see if they work, you know. And based on that, you can start building and developing on top. So I want to talk more about how to get your ideas into product, okay? In order to do that, you need to, first of all, you got your ideas, okay? So you got your problem, you got your solution. Now you need to match it to your customer, which is your ideal customer profile. So going to the next slide. So you look at like this. You got Lauren, Marty McFly, and Dr. Brown. They're all three different customers, but they've all got different pain points, different solutions, and different demographics. When you're building things, if it's a surf app, if it's an insure product, you've got to nail and really understand these customers. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time. So go on to the next one. So you look at this. You can profile Dr. Emmett Brown. Look at his demographics, his interest, and more importantly, his pain points, you know, and his goals. And then you go to the next one, Marty McFly, you know. He wants to, he's a young guy, he's aspirational, he doesn't have a good family life. He wants to explore and find new things. But the key thing is you want to find out who the bad ICP is. So most people focus on the good ICP, but I think the bad one's just as important. So, like, you look at Biff Tannen, he was the bad guy. And what you don't want is someone who's gaining wealth and influence with time travel. Like, that's a bad customer right now. He's going to mess up the future. So, and I remember with launching High Five, I was building, it was an HR tech platform, and I thought the ideal customer was HR people. And then I realized more and more they were the bad people because they felt that this was a threat for their jobs. And then I had to pivot and actually focus on CEOs and MDs of companies who are focused on culture and organization, right? And so that's what's the good thing. You've got to focus and define those ICPs. Put them on your board and keep looking at those as you're going through, you know. You can use AI to do all of this here. Like, help me define an ICP for the surfing industry or for the co-working industry, for insurtech, and it'll just map these out for you. There's AI for all of these kind of templates right now, so it's easy. And then there's templates. You can go onto the, I'll give a link to the stuff. You can map out ICP templates as well. Then focus on your market. Once again, don't go too wide. Just like your customer, pick 2 or 3. Your market, go niche, niche, niche. Airbnb's got the best template for this. They've got like a total addressable market where when they launch a pitch deck looking at the main, available trips worldwide, the budget available, and the total addressable market, niching into that more and more. You're going to look like a total fool saying your product can work for all customers worldwide. You have to make sure you segment and focus on the exact niches and pinpoint them as much as you can. And I go wrapped in the knuckles for this, but like, you have to unfortunately be where your customers are. I know we live in a remote world, but you've got to live and breathe and understand where they are, you know. I'll go into more of that now. But and then like pinpoint your startup where it is. There is competition. If you think there isn't competition, then you've probably got a very terrible product, or you haven't found the right segment, right? Because there will always be competition, so you're going to find out where you fit, how unique you are. So when the conversations do come up with potential customers, you can identify where your product fits within the matrix. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? Is it more easy? Is it harder to use? You know, is it more for SMEs or SMB or large enterprises? There's always a niche for your product. So yeah, and then launch, man. Just like ship it, get it out. This whole process should take you to 2 to 4 weeks, to like from inception, from validation to inception to launch. If it's taking too long, you launch too late. You actually have to ship your product and get them out there. And I'll talk more about that now. Got 3 minutes left. So get scrappy. Like, I love this picture of Dr. Brian. Like, I don't remember the lighting scene. Like, he's like just holding it together, man. Like, that's what a founder feels like. It's like he was like pulling the 2 wires together on the top of the tower. The lighting's coming down, and he's trying to connect the voltage that's going to go through the wires as the DeLorean's coming through at 8 miles per hour. And then it's like pretty fine. But you're going to find that you feel like your startup is held together by a piece of press stick. That's okay. That's actually like a good thing. Because if customers are willing to buy it when it's in that stage, it's easier to scale. You can't spend 2 years trying to scale your product and get it ready. You've got to get it right now. And I've been there, done that. I mean, when we launched i5, I got an intern to build a little product off a scrappy piece of code. He hardly knew how to code, and we took it to Pep, and they bought it, man. They bought our first stage of the product, and we're like, oh my goodness, now we're going to actually make this thing work. So we went back to the studio and we got guys to build it. But like, you got to go in seeing your customers are really going to pay. Otherwise, you're wasting a lot of time. Yeah, I love this quote by Reid Hoffman. If you're not embarrassed by the first version, you've launched too late. That's the biggest trap. Like thinking that you're going to perfect everything. Like, rather get early customer feedback as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're spending way too much time and money. And go to the next one. And this is how you can launch, right? Your MVPs. Dropbox is phenomenal for. They didn't build a product. They built a landing page with a video with a sign-up list. That was their product. Okay. Google, with Google Ads, they didn't have technology. They had people that were taking the fields and populating the auction or the bids. This was not done automatically whatsoever. And that was Google. Then you got like Jeff Bezos for Amazon. When people were ordering shoes, he was literally using the Wizard of Oz method, where people ordering shoes, you'd go get shoes at the shoe shop and go deliver it. You know, there was nothing automatic or product about it. He hadn't built anything. So you can build very, very scrappy solutions at the beginning. Yeah, you don't need to know how to code. There's tons of no-code platforms out there that can piece things together. Yeah, so it's easy. MakerPad, go check them out. They're really cool. And then next. And then checking your work. Like, this is unfortunately a big fail for a lot of people. Like, they put so much time and effort and they focus on these little details or niche of like the font being right or something else. But then the product's not working. Like I had it the other day, a founder sent me like a tool, and I checked it, I tried to sign up and it wasn't working. And I don't have time to like, hey, this is not working. Like, so you really got to just go through all your checks and balances. Like, so I've created like a checklist template that you can just quickly tick things off before you launch to make sure everything's right. So I always compare this to like a flight when you're flying a plane. The pilots still have to go through a basic checklist every time they launch, just to make sure your product's not going to be a fail, you know. Okay, and then that's it. I mean, you've got to pivot. Go to the next one, sorry. 40% of startups pivot before, they get to the idea. Like Dr. Brown first thought that, like the food going into the DeLorean, he was going to put like old food in the DeLorean to make it work. It didn't work then, but then it worked when he went back in the future was it 2022? And that was actually 2018, yeah. So he was too early with that idea, but it came out later. But he had to pivot a few times and use, what was it again? He got into trouble with the Russians. Petroleum, was it? Yeah, plutonium, that was it, yeah. And you got lots of trouble for that. But yeah, you've got to have to learn how to pivot. The best way to do that is measure. So as you're launching, look at how many people sign up, how many use your product, and continue to assess that on an ongoing basis. It's very simple. There's a template for that as well. I call it's a thing called Pirate Metrics: acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. So you want to keep measuring all of those. Okay, next. So here's a good sample of the companies that have pivoted, like Loom, Amplitude, Retool, and like you look at some ideas that got it from the start. As you can see, not a lot have them got it right. Instagram was a pivot, Google was a pivot. Most of the startups have been pivots, so don't latch on your idea, I can't stress this enough. Don't latch on your idea. Just keep shipping multiple iterations and seeing what's working, because you often find the thing that's quite left field actually ends up being the right one. I've gone over. Okay, that's it. Post-launch. Okay. It's hard. Can I play this 1 minute video? I don't know if the sound's going to... Can you hear it today?
You're talking about starting a company. What are you talking about starting? I went to it. I know. The reason why I went to it, and it goes back to why it's so hard, is building a company and building a video turned out to be a million times harder than any of us expected it to be. And at that time, we realized the pain and suffering and just how vulnerable you're going to feel and the challenges that you're going to endure, and the embarrassment, the shame, the list of all the things that go wrong. I don't think anybody would start a company. Nobody in their right mind would do it. And I think that's the superpower of an entrepreneur. They don't know how hard it is. And they only ask themselves how hard it can be. And to this day, I trick my brain into thinking how hard it can be. And I'm still enjoying myself immensely, and I'm adding a little bit of value, but that's really the trick of an entrepreneur. You have to get yourself to believe that it's not that hard. Because it's way harder than you think. Yeah, it seemed like my college couldn't go back. And I said, I'm going to tour that church again. I think it's too much. It was just too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good next year. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think once again, it's just if you're trying to focus on this big elaborate plan, trying to work everything out, it's not going to work. You have to go one step at a time and enjoy the process. It's like I always look back. The early days were the glory days. Like getting the first customer, getting the first bit of traction, and then when you scale, you have to get more investment and you have to hire people and in finance meetings all day. That's the boring stage. Like the early stage is good fun, but it's painful as heck. We can skip this. I'll just go to the next. So if you've got there's some cool books I highly suggest reading, especially this one, The Lean Startup. If you haven't read that, that's like the foundation. If you can ask any founder, they've all read that. That's like Lean Reese. It's Eric Ries, is incredible. And then Getting Real as well. And then I've got a few templates that you can more than welcome download from the site. They're for free as well. I've got a newsletter called Stay Scrappy. You can go check them out. I've put all those up for free just to help other founders out there that need help with this stuff. And then that's it. Yeah, sorry, I went over by 5 minutes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, thanks. That's the biggest thing my investor taught me is you have to get real. Like, unfortunately, the good thing about a founder is you're optimistic, but the bad thing is they're too optimistic. And the cash flow at the end of the day is what's going to make you survive or thrive, you know. And you have to be very, very realistic about that as much as possible. So that's why I like to have those measurements in place and look at like your revenue, what's left, and just keep gauging on that. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a conundrum. And you're going to look at, unfortunately, founders, most of the time they want to focus on the product. But the biggest thing they're not focusing on is reaching the market. So get this beautiful squeaky little product that works, but nobody knows about it, you know. And what people don't realize is that Steve Jobs was a good product guy, but he was probably a better marketer, you know. He had a good team that did the product. So he was good at marketing, and he could let the world know about his creation. And founders are too scared and cagey, and they want everyone to sign NDAs. You've got to be public and talk about what you want to do. I love that, yeah. I think it's the way to go because you can, you're finding problems as you in the service business, you know. So that's what I like. I mean, with High Five as well. I mean, we were in a company, we had HR, and we saw the time in the process, and they were selling a service, and we thought, how can we prioritize this? So it's good to, and you find most of the startups always they come out of that. People that have been in the service business for their specific field, and then they go and prioritize certain aspects or niches out of it. So I think it's definitely the way to go, you know. Like living and breathing with your customers. So if you just go back a few slides to, I love this story. I actually found it this morning. So these guys built like an HR agriculture platform. They just raised $26 million. Okay, and you know why they invested in them? I love it. It was right at the end of the story. He remembers getting a customer call. And this farmer got pitched by Silicon Valley entrepreneurs all the time, but the difference between this founder and the others is that they showed up at the farm and they were literally there in the morning and the afternoon, sitting with the farmer and seeing where they're at. So you've got to live and breathe with your customers. Find out where they're active. Is it on Instagram? Is it on LinkedIn? What social networks? What music do they listen to? Where do they hang out? You know, you got to that's why it's so important to understand the ICP and their interests and try and gauge in those interests, you know. You never want to be selling, you want to be solving, you know. So you want to see where they're at on a continual basis. I think, I mean, you can take that quite literal that you're going to be there. Like I remember the early days of Airbnb when they first got their first investment, like Peter Thiel told them, he was actually annoyed because they were sitting behind the desk like every other founder trying to lash out ideas. And he says, where's your customers? He says, in New York. He's like, get to New York. And he sat down with his customers and the traction was quite low with Airbnb. And the more he dealt with the customers, he figured out that the pictures were bad. So he took pictures of the houses and updated the pictures, and the conversions of the platform increased by 2x or 3x. And he figured out that problem. He wouldn't have solved that without being with the customers. And you can do that remotely. It's not advised, but I mean, some days you've got to scale. Like I do that now. Like I'll rather get on a Zoom call or hang out with them. But it's advisable to be with them, you know. So yeah, it's hard to get out JB. I know. It's like, but yeah. So or find something in your local area. You know, like what I like about JB. It's a tough ground, and there's quite a few niches. And I think if you can get it right in a small economy like this, you can actually solve it in a big economy. Like there's so many ideas from sorting out automation at restaurants to co-working facilities to retail. There's a lot to get solved here. To automation of a presentation tool. So yeah, there's tons I think you can get solved in your local community, you know. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll probably leave it at that then. Thanks so much, Gary.
Cool.
You're around, so
yeah.
Feel free to reach out to Gary.
Yeah.
And he's always very helpful. I can attest to that. He's got
Okay.
lots of time for us. He doesn't have lots of time, but he's always helpful.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, yeah. Cool.